It's Subverted Tropes, a podcast about movies, featuring your hosts Daniel Spencer and Kate Harlow. All right, welcome to another episode of Subverted Tropes. I'm Dan.
I'm Kate.
And we have some guests with us. We've got the Nelsen sisters from Historical Hotties.
Hello.
If you would like to take some seconds here and introduce yourselves, we will start off with Lindsay.
I'm Lindsay, the very adorable younger sibling of Historical Hotties.
I am Whitney, the skeptical older sister of the Nelsen sisters of Historical Hotties.
Accurate.
Fantastic. Historical Hotties is a very, very fun podcast that these two do, where they go through categories of historical figures and determine which one is the biggest babe.
That's our jam.
Yep.
It's a delightful show.
We make history accessible by thirsting over dead people.
Yep.
And who among us hasn't done that for all of our school
Right, no,
careers?
everyone has. Yeah. Everyone has. That's something everyone can relate to. History doesn't seem boring when everybody's thirsty.
It's true.
All right. So you guys picked the movie Calamity Jane.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, we
for
did.
us to talk about. Why did you pick that one?
We have a very long history with this movie. We have been watching it possibly since before we were born.
It's been a favorite since we were wee young children, and we went through the movie. This is, obviously pre-internet accessibility for things, but we went through the movie line by line with like a notepad to write down the script so that we could do the play ourselves when we were like 8 and 9 and 10, somewhere in there. We were like, we're definitely doing this as a play, and went through the movie line by line and writing down every line so that we had it for the script.
That is fantastic. Who was who in the play that you did?
Oh, well, Whitney has a Doris Day thing and a Calamity Jane thing, so there was no way I was getting that part away from her.
Usually Lindsay got all the good parts. When the two of us, just two, would play Robin Hood, Lindsay would be Maid Marian, and I would be the Sheriff of Nottingham.
No.
Somehow I didn't even get to be Robin Hood.
We never played just the two of us. That was only with our cousins. And
we played it with us first, and I had to be the Sheriff of Nottingham.
Whitney will never let this go that she had to be the Sheriff of Nottingham.
Well, just Lindsay may be the younger one, but she was definitely the more alpha of the two of us, and so she got the best roles in almost everything. And I was definitely like, not this time, sister. I'm Calamity Jane.
Fantastic. So let's just jump right in.
Yeah.
So I'm going to set the scene here. It's 1950, and Warner Brothers and MGM are fighting over a promising American musical script about a rough and tumble lady sharpshooter who falls in love with a big, strong Mayan sharpshooter. And she acts stereotypically masculine and becomes more stereotypically feminine after finding love in Howard Keel's arms. So Doris Day very much wanted in on that movie in the title role, but MGM bought the rights for it, and Warner Brothers wouldn't loan her to the studio. So that movie went on to become Annie, Get Your Gun. And then Doris Day was really upset about that, that she couldn't get loaned out to MGM, and that Betty Hutton got the role of Annie. And so she basically showed everyone that she was better by recording herself singing all of the songs from Annie, Get Your Gun.
Whitney is nodding fanatically right now.
Here's how much I like Doris Day, you guys, and how much Doris Day is better than everyone. I almost legally changed my name to Dynamite Jackson, which is not the name of a role. It is not the name of a role that Doris Day plays. It is a stage name of a role that Doris Day plays in a movie. It's not even her character's name in the movie. It is the character's stage name when she's on Broadway. But most of the movie, that's not even her name. But I was like, So I am so in love with Doris Day that I was like, well, I'll just change my name legally to Dynamite Jackson.
I'm still kind of sad that didn't happen.
Yeah,
Can you
I'm-
imagine
It might.
getting,
It might. Don't write it off.
getting to introduce
One day when I
people?
have like $35 for court filing fees and a whole day to spend in the city hall, it may still happen.
I mean, like, canonically in my head now, your name is Dynamite Jackson. Like, even if you don't officially change it, that's what it's going to be going forward.
Also, friends could call me Dinah for short, which is super cute.
That is super cute.
It is, but why would anybody not say the whole thing?
Just
No,
the whole
everyone
Dynamite
would
Jackson.
say my full
Every
name
time.
all the time because it's Dynamite Jackson.
Yeah.
Oh, man. That's so good. I
So anyway, we were
podcast
at
over.
Doris
I
Day
don't think
being
I
better
can-
than everyone.
I don't think there's any getting past Dynamite Jackson. So, moving on to Calamity Jane itself. It had been a rumor in the works at Warner Brothers since 1948, but they didn't actually start filming until a lot later when Jack Warner decided to push the project through after Annie Get Your Gun was as successful as it was. So he took on Doris Day for the lead, learning from MGM's mistake, and also taking on Howard Keel in basically the same role, just a different character. So he played Wild Bill Hickok, and this it's just, I love Howard Keel, particularly in Seven Brides for Seven Brothers.
Yeah.
Great movie.
He's fantastic in that, and very, very, very good looking.
This one has a thing for gingers, in case you couldn't tell.
I do, but just in this movie, I am not a fan of Howard Keel. I mean, he does a fine job. Of course, his singing is amazing, but he looks weird. He looks weird.
I do think there's something weird about the costuming for him in this movie. I feel like where they put the waistband of his pants and the way they fitted, like, the vest and the pants makes his body shape look weirder than it is. He has a very nice shape, and this makes it look weird. And, like, I don't know, like, he's late stage Captain Kirk wearing a girdle or something.
Oh, man, that's great.
Accurate.
So I've got a problem with the waist of my pants. Can we just, like,
you bring them up?
you just bring up, I want them, like, right, just, like, middle of the sternum, just, like,
Right.
up here,
Right in my
please.
Yeah, I need like 1 inch below my nipples, please and thank you.
I accidentally ordered very, very short suspenders, and I need the pants to make up the difference.
These are the suspenders that my toddler wore for his 1-year-old photo shoot. I couldn't get any others, so we're just going to use them, so make them tall.
I also think in this role, and this is, something we could talk about after we've watched the movie. I'm kind of jumping ahead here. But this role for him, they make him take a very hard left turn in the character. And I don't think he does a bad job. I also don't think that he keeps up or, like, makes it believable for his character's hard left turn. And I don't know if that's on him or if that's on the script, but, like, everyone else does it okay, and I don't think he quite catches up and sells it. So I definitely don't think he's bad in the role, but I also don't know that he was the best person to play Bill Hickok.
I think that's fair. And yeah, definitely something to evaluate after watching the movie.
Yeah.
So Doris Day often said that this was her favorite role to play because she was able to just let go and have fun with it. And you can tell that in the movie. Like, she's absolutely hilarious. She said it was the real her just blasting off at everybody.
Yeah, I really think you're right. You can tell that it's part of what makes this movie so charming and engaging is how much she is clearly enjoying it. It's just always fun to watch.
Yeah, it's very evident, and she loves it, and really enjoyed getting into the physicality of it as well. But there was
For Doris Day, like, she did a lot of dancing and stuff in her career, but the pratfalls and stuff was kind of new territory for her, and she really, like, clearly embraced it wholeheartedly. The physical comedy and everything. She is not a side of Doris Day that you really ever saw.
Yeah. And the only, like, downside of getting into the physicality part of it was that in the there's a scene where she gets lassoed and, like, raised off the ground. And the rope was so tight that she almost lost consciousness. Oh, no. Because it was just, like, tight, and they did that scene a few times, and she couldn't breathe, and it was very tough.
Yeah. It kind of looks like it. It does not look like how stuff like that now, where you can kind of... Their weight is being pulled from a different place because they're wearing, like, a harness under their costume. That legitimately looks like that rope is raising her up, so...
Yeah, it's wild.
But stuff they got away with back in the day.
Right. Mm-hmm. So that's all I have for the first part. Do you want to go watch this movie?
Let's go watch a movie.
Let's go watch a movie.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
And we're back.
Hello.
That movie is just a delight. A delight.
Just a delight.
Is it problematic? Yes.
Oh, yes. Boy, howdy is it.
Very much so.
Yes.
In a
As,
lot
like,
of different areas.
6-year-old, I could tell that movie was problematic. Still couldn't stop watching it, though.
Yeah, no, it's
infectious. It's just like, I think that obviously Doris Day is a huge, she is the movie, and she had so much fun making it, and but like, just everybody else did such a great job too, and it's just so full of joy.
Yeah.
That whole movie.
Absolutely.
It's just, like, it doesn't stop being uplifting and fun.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I feel like the aggressively problematic stuff was mostly confined to the first 30 minutes or so. And then from there it was like, yeah, that's problematic, but that's not aggressively racist.
Yeah.
I mean, the Native American stuff is terrible.
Yeah.
But it's not a major part of the movie.
Yeah.
It's like background color. I think Lieutenant Danny Gilmartin remains a terrible person throughout the entire movie, and I fail to understand why everyone's in love with him.
Yes.
Yeah, no, there's like...
Yeah, no, I think he's a problematic, like, male role model in the movie. He doesn't need to be a villain, and I feel like they didn't walk the line of deciding whether he was a villain or a love interest well enough, because he's kind of both, and it's like, why are you in love with him if he's kind of a villain? And I think that he's a very problematic male role model. And obviously the whole thing of her starting out super butch and essentially in drag was really, really, really forward thinking at the time. Like, them not trying to... Because that's how she was. I mean, they really gave the Hollywood gloss to the whole story of Calamity Jane, but but they didn't gloss over that. The fact that people mistook her for a man, and the fact that she, like, dressed in men's clothes. In a 50s musical, that's, like, a big deal to put in there, so they get props for that. But also they go straight into the she has to be pretty and feminine to be loved thing.
Yeah,
and
they have to walk that all the way back to a pink ball gown.
Yeah. And that's the only time that anyone realizes that she might be deserving of love. And I feel like that's actually the most problematic, because racism I obviously have a hard time with, and it is rampant in this, and the way that they treat Native Americans is pretty jarring when you go back and you watch it fresh, like, today. But I also feel like that was of a time, and I also feel like they started off strong with the racism, and then it kind of tapered off as you went along.
Yeah,
and
there's that really interesting line right before they start singing about how wonderful the Black Hills are on the way to the ball, where she says, this land is so beautiful, you can almost see why they fight so hard to keep it.
Yeah.
And you're like, whoa, movie, you just...
It's like, okay, so are we, like, acknowledging that this is a terrible, like, wherever, it's,
exactly.
where you go, like, they just
it's
say
like
it
the
and
movie
then throw
is
it away.
fessing up that we almost eradicated an entire people because the land was so swell. Like, and we wanted it. It's like, it's kind of shocking.
Yeah, yeah.
But where I feel like a lot of the problematic stuff kind of gets walked back by the end of the movie, they walk forward the fact that you have to be pretty and beautiful and feminine to be worthy of love.
That's almost
Yeah.
a more insidious issue I think, and something that's maybe not as acknowledged as much now as it should be as something that is as insidious as it is.
Yes.
Yeah.
So actually, like, there was really not a lot of information that I could find. Also, I feel like any information I could find is probably like pales in comparison to I think what Whitney already knows about this movie.
I don't know any behind the scenes stuff. I've watched it at least once a year for 34 years, but other than that, I don't know any behind the scenes stuff. I just know what happens on the scene so well I could recite it from memory right now for you.
And that's going to be the rest of the podcast.
Yep.
It's just a dramatic reading.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Nelsen sisters. And their rendition of Calamity Jane.
Everybody buckle up. We're going to be here for a while.
So, the only other piece of information that I have is that the set for the town was used in several Warner Brothers Western films, and it was also the setting of Atlanta in Gone with the Wind.
Oh.
Yeah.
I did not know that.
So, let's talk about the tropes in this movie.
Well, there's the you need to be pretty to be loved one, right off the...
Yup.
Ooh.
The belligerent sexual tension of Wild Bill and Calamity Jane constantly at each other's throats.
That you're in love with your best friend, you just don't know it.
Yep.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and also I feel like they all prey at the same time on the, hate is the next closest emotion to love thing. They really play that up a lot in that, she's in love with her best friend thing, but the constant, bickering, and there's a whole song about how much they rile each other up. And
Yeah, which really felt like the anything you can do, I can do better of Calamity Jane instead of Annie Get Your Gun.
Yep.
Oh yeah, that was totally I didn't get to be an Annie, I'm gonna do this song.
Yeah. It was pretty great.
I like that song. I like the song in Calamity Jane better than anything you can do, I can do better, personally.
I guess I hadn't thought about it between the two.
As a versus. Yeah.
They're both great. I love them both. But
There's a couple very awkward rhymes in, I don't actually even know what the title of the song is. I Can Do Without You, I'm guessing,
Yeah.
because that's the chorus
That would
refrain.
be my guess too. That's, yeah.
But I think it's an incredibly fun song, and they both get into it so much. And Whitney, you guys were saying about the physical comedy, this is a super physical song. They're throwing each other around the golden nugget and stuff. And although I think it's really funny at the end how they kind of end harumph back to back, and then the movie has a moment where it has to go that this is stupid. How do we get out of this?
it just went, and walks off.
I don't know. I like the, more so than the I'm better than you at everything, I like the you ruin everything
Yeah.
of the song in Calamity Jane. This is in the forest you're the poison oak kind of thing, rather than I can shoot, I can ride, I can sew, I can sing, whatever, I can do it better than you. I like the not I'm better, the you're terrible of the song in Calamity Jane. I think that's why I like it.
That is a
more.
very good point.
This isn't about my worth. It's about your lack of.
So I do know about the real Calamity Jane, one fact, and that is that she did have a love affair with Bill Hickok at some point.
Ooh.
They were friends. They did
So she claims
do it a little bit.
After she died, it came out that from some of his friends that maybe that wasn't actually true, but when she died, at the behest of her friends, they buried her next to him.
Yeah,
So
I mean,
Well,
it's kind of
so
up in
here's the
the air.
thing. They weren't together. They didn't get married. They were not together a long time. She slept with a lot of people, and at one point possibly was a prostitute. But we don't even know how many kids she had. There's 2 that are most likely true and verified. There's potentially up to 3 others that she had, and possibly one of those was with Bill Hickok.
Dang.
So it was not a long-term thing, and it's quite possible, because she was not an attractive person, that Bill Hickok was like, no, that's not true.
yeah.
And so his friends were like, that's not a thing. But it actually people do think that it happened. And I don't have, like, verified accounts or anything, but from what I am aware of, like, when I've looked into it a little bit, we're pretty sure that it actually did happen between the two of them for a brief while.
And I mean, as this movie does get right, she was a very big builder of her own legend. She was a person who actively circulated stories about herself, and they always got bigger and grander in the retelling. So attaching herself to lots of famous figures of the West was definitely a thing that she did, but her and Bill were also, like, long-term friends, and I could definitely see it happening.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would tend to believe the two of you over what I had read in passing. I trust you are more informed than I.
Well, I don't know that that's a good instinct, but okay, yeah, I'll take it. But yeah, so where were we?
We were going over tropes, and
tropes.
One of the tropes is the tomboy and girly girl that we
Yes.
get with Calamity and Katie, which actually leads into a very interesting thing about this movie. And it works since we are in Pride Month, but Calamity Jane is actually cited as a very pro-LGBT movie, with having a character who has, a female character who has significantly more masculine traits, and the whole, like, it was her idea for her and Katie to move in together, and there's also some implications around the song Secret Love, and, like, what that really means. And so, yeah, it's just a very, like, in a lot of ways progressive, and then in a lot of other ways regressive movie.
Yeah, well, I think that queer people have been reading signs into movies since there's been queer people in movies.
Especially because there aren't a lot of us in movies.
This
so
is true.
Right. So you have to, like, look for clues to, like, sort of feed the internal monologue that you're already giving the story anyway, to suit you more in your lifestyle. But I do feel like they have a lot more to go on in reading into stuff in Calamity Jane than in most other movies.
It's a movie that doesn't
I
really
also
seem to
feel
have
like
its whole identity on lock, so it might be a lot easier to find some hidden identity undertones.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I also feel like, with the exception of Bill Hickok dressing as a squaw, the, like, cross-dressing, even when it's a joke in the movie, is not handled with the same ridicule as it is in any other movie of the time, or even, honestly, like, today.
Yeah.
Like, her dressing as a man for so much of the movie, and her being taken as a man, is not treated as, like, the butt of a joke. Even when Frances Fryer gets on stage dressed as a woman, it is a funny part of the movie and it is a joke, but he is not portrayed in the way that any other woman or any other man in drag is, like, the butt of the joke.
yeah,
Right.
he's not
In that
belittled
movie.
for having done that. The anger and stuff about that is all about trying to pull one over on the audience of being Adelaide, or of being somebody that he's not that he was in women's clothing.
And so I feel like they treated that with more respect than any other movie of the time, or, like I said, even sometimes still today treat, like, men in women's clothing.
Yeah. With Bill, unfortunately for racist issues, as much of the joke was that he was a Native American woman as that he was a woman.
Yeah.
So, but there's a lot of, like, playing with identity in this movie, which I can definitely see a lot of queer people identifying with. There's Calamity trying to figure out what's, true for her, and there's also the whole fact that Katie enters the whole movie pretending to be somebody else, and she isn't good until she's herself.
She is herself.
Mm-hmm.
Like, she can't be good pretending to be Adelaide Adams. She can only be good when she fully embraces herself and stops trying to pretend to be somebody else. So there are a lot of messages like that in the movie. And if nothing else, with, Calamity and Katie, it at least celebrates a female friendship in a way that not a lot of movies at this time did. Women are almost always pitted against each other. Again, then and still sadly now. There aren't a lot of movies that just glorify the importance of having close relationships with women in your life as a woman,
Yeah.
That Katie's willing to put Calamity above possibly her own you know, true love, big quotes. Especially because it's with Lieutenant Gilmartin, who's such a jerk. I just do not understand how this movie glorifies him. He's such a bad person. Like, in the whole scene where Bill and Danny are racing to get to the cabin first to hit on Katie. And she sends Bill out to chop wood so she can tell Danny, like, nothing can happen because my best friend is in love with you. And I don't want to do anything to hurt her. And then when Calamity comes back in, he was just told, if he didn't know before, which he should have, he was just told that Calamity has very strong feelings for him. And then he totally plays those up because it, like, flatters his ego. He, like, kisses her on the forehead and says she's, like, a great woman and stuff, even though Katie just told her she's in love with him. It's so terrible. And then later when he kisses Katie at the dance, and she's like, what about Calamity? And he's like, she can be a bridesmaid. If I had the ability to punch characters through a TV screen...
Oh, man, when she says, what about Calamity? This is going to hurt her feelings. Like, this is going to kill her. He's like, she can be a bridesmaid at your wedding. Oh!
It wasn't at that point, but shortly later on I yelled, you jag!
Yeah.
I can confirm that happened.
I do that a lot.
It's so terrible. I am so mad that this movie rewards him at, like, every turn. Because he is truly a bad person.
I would rather be in Illinois.
Yeah. And I think the rest of them are, for their faults, like, good people. I think part of what makes this movie charming is that, despite, like, the misunderstandings and stuff, Bill and Calamity and Katie are all decent. You know. And they all, like, care about each other. And there's... Although I do also think the scene where Calamity and Bill realize they're in love with each other... I would be pretty suspicious of somebody confessing their love to me literally in the same breath they're talking about how somebody is the most beautiful woman they've ever seen. Somebody else.
It's like, let's have a conversation about how we both just got rejected by the people that we're in love with. And at the end of that conversation, let's just mac a bit. It's like...
Oh, wait. Maybe now we're in love.
It seems like we all have a tenuous grasp on what the concept of love is. Let me put my face on yours.
Especially because we sing epic songs about how in love we are after seeing somebody perform one time.
That's right. And that scene itself was one of my favorites because, like, he goes in and starts singing, like, next to this painting that this painter is doing of her. And the look on that painter's face when he leaves is just like... Okay, if you're going to come in here and just start singing, I guess I'll finish this later. He just, like, picks up his stuff and goes.
No, it's pretty great. It's pretty great. There are a couple...
Totally it is.
Yeah, there are a couple moments where this movie seems to realize some of the ridiculous, like, cinematic things that it's trying to do. Like, at the end of I Could Do Without You, in that moment where the painter's like, well, if you're going to weirdly sing at my painting, I'm getting out of here.
But my absolute, like, favorite thing in this whole movie is another trope that we encounter, which is breaking the fourth wall. I love any take to the camera, and Calamity's take to the camera after Katie is like, help me pack my bags.
I feel like somebody's getting hustled.
Yes, it's just so good.
I love that scene. I get the strange feeling someone's being hustled.
Like, I
really
don't know what it is about a take to the camera that I eat up, but it's so good every time, especially when it's unexpected, like in this movie. Like, Well, because
it's the only time they do it, except for at the very end, they sing their, like, happily ever after song to the audience.
Yeah.
But it's the only other time that they talk to the audience. That's another trope that ends in everybody getting married, which is all the way back to Shakespeare trope of if it's a tragedy, everybody has to die except for one person. And if it's a comedy, everybody has to end up married.
Yep.
Yep.
And I do love that, like...
Except for poor Francis Fryer.
Right. Who I wish that he had hooked up with Katie. Like, I could see them getting together in a much more... satisfying relationship than with
except he's got that whole Victor Victoria thing going on for himself, so He really can't be with
Yeah,
anybody else.
they never would have let him because of that. That's why he didn't get
That's fair. That's fair.
married.
But yeah, like that scene at the end is just like, we're gonna do a quick like 20-second reprise of every song that we've sung so far.
Yeah.
It's just like a good little bow on the movie.
Yeah, we're gonna summarize the movie in a song medley right now.
Oh,
And about the singing, I think it's really funny. So their accents are hilarious in this movie. They're
Yes.
like they're country old westy accents. And then the fact that in the goofy songs they keep the accents, and then in the serious songs they immediately drop them and go to like transatlantic pronunciation of everything.
Yes. Absolutely.
I don't even know if I'd picked up on that, but you're right.
Like, it hadn't occurred to me while we were watching it, but as soon as you said it, it made sense.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah. They go to these beautiful rounded vowels and long tones as soon as they get into the big dramatic or romantic songs, and then they drop
And then
right
it's-
back into their old
Like
westy-
twangy R's and
Yep.
stuff. Yeah.
It's just like, I'm either singing Oscar bait or, well, this is a great song to sing.
But speaking
Yeah,
of Oscar
yeah.
bait,
They keep it- they
My
keep it in the
Secret
goofy
Love
ones.
did actually win the Oscar.
Yes, Secret Love did win the Oscar for that year.
Best original song, I think it was.
Mm-hmm.
It's a good song.
It is. It feels like it goes on a little long to me in the movie, but
Well, there's a lot of... It totally destroys the entire narrative flow,
Yes.
where it's at and how long it is. It's a really, really good song.
yeah.
But it should have happened before climactic events started happening or after. Not right smack dab in the middle of the climactic events.
Yes.
It's fair. That's fair.
That's another trope we have. We have the get out of town warning.
Yes.
And we also have the just missed somebody, have to chase them and bring them back
Yes.
trope.
The running to the airport to stop
Yep.
Katie from taking that stagecoach back to Chicago. Which I don't. They said Chicago so many times.
So many times. And like somebody will say, like Katie will say Chicago to Calamity Jane, and then she'll immediately respond with Chicago? And it was like, you just heard her say it. Wait.
I was so close to having an aneurysm by the end of that movie. Chicago, sarsaparilla. What was it? A massacre?
Massacre.
When she sees all the
Yeah.
wind, she's like, scalps. It was a massacre. It's like, no. No.
I'm just
Although
like,
I think that one's actually the most period and location accurate out of all of her
Yeah.
like old timey fun
Jargon.
westerny slang. Massacre is I think the most accurate out of all of them.
That's fair.
but I do think that, like we're kind of talking about how this movie does not really humiliate the two guys who dress up in drag for dressing up in drag in this movie. That scene where she goes to Chicago is really interesting because everybody there is kind of both aghast at and making fun of her, and the way that she takes it all in is kind of amazing. And how, like, they all laugh at her when she pulls a gun on the Native American cigar statue because she thinks it's an actual, like, Sioux. And they all laugh at her, and she just goes like, well, I'll be hornswoggled. And then
Hornswoggled.
laughs at herself. And, like, the way that she takes... I think it's really interesting the way they portray her character as not necessarily being totally oblivious, but never, like, reading the bad in anything.
Yeah.
I do think that is part of the reason why she gets so hurt with Katie and the lieutenant, because it's one of the only times, like,
Yeah.
her optimism ever lets her down
Yeah.
about something.
And
Yeah, it is an interesting mix in a lead character to be like sort of aware of how people feel about you, but not aware of like the connotation of it, not aware of like the ramifications of it or where that judgment is coming from. And she's okay with being judged, but she's not necessarily aware how negative the judgment is and kind of just lives her life anyway, which I think is part of the reason why she's so appealing
Yeah.
in this movie.
yeah.
Well, the other thing about that is it kind of ties into, like, the community of Deadwood. Like, they're angry, not that they have Frances dressed up in drag. They are angry because they were misled about what the ticket they had was to see. And like they don't end up being angry about Katie not being
Adelaide
Adams.
Yeah, like they're not not mad that she actually isn't. She's still a pretty and attractive lady who was there to sing and entertain them. They are only mad because they have been misled to that point. And I think it's very interesting the way that carries over both times.
Yeah, I agree. I do want to backtrack a minute to the scene where she pulls the gun on the wooden Native American, and everyone laughs at her. Like, everyone had gathered. It's like there was just like a line of people just watching her interact with things, and then getting to that point where they laughed at her. It was like it backs up, and it's just like a huge crowd of people just staring at her intently.
Oh, well, that happens in Chicago all the time.
Oh, yeah. See, I've never been to Chicago, so I wouldn't know.
I'm gonna take you, and I'm gonna let the random throngs of people standing on the sidewalk laughing at tourists.
All right. Well, I mean,
it's jarring the first time it happens, but otherwise it's fine.
Yeah, I just find the whole Chicago scene very fascinating because I feel like this movie, in a lot of ways, doesn't know where it stands on a bunch of things. Because, like, it makes fun of Calamity Jane for being a country bumpkin and, like, wearing deerskin and not being feminine. But it also makes fun of the dolled up people in Chicago. Like, it gives her a hard time for not being girly and feminine enough, but then it also makes fun of some of the girly and feminine, like, the whole, like, goggling at bustles and stuff like that. Like, it's very...
Yeah.
And the most, like, dolled-up feminine person in this movie, the actual Adelaide Adams, is a horrible person.
Oh, yeah. No, she's terrible.
And refers to Chicago as primitive and awful.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Would you
she
rather...
hates the fans who have made her, like, rich and famous, and she just can't wait to go to Europe and, like, pretend she's not, making money by performing in a corset all the time.
Yeah.
Well, that's, I think, about all that I have. Any final thoughts or anything from anyone?
We did this during the movie. Tag yourself, gay icon. I'm a Katie.
I'm definitely a Calamity.
Definitely a calamity.
Definitely a calamity.
There was a whole period of my teenage years where I swore off wearing dresses and would only wear pants, and it freaked my father out. So
I love it. I love it. It's a Katharine Hepburn face.
Yeah. I mean, it was not as elegant as a Katharine Hepburn. I wish it was a Katharine Hepburn face. At least
no, it was more like a Nirvana phase.
It was not a Nirvana face.
If there are no
flannel
photos,
in
That's
my
the
present.
Katharine Hepburn phase.
If anything, now we are in my Marlene Dietrich phase where I just want to wear suits all the time.
Nice.
Yeah.
Wearing suit.
I will actually say I think I have to take back the fact that I'm a calamity. I think I might be more of a Bill Hickok.
fair.
Okay.
I can see that.
I'm goofy. I'm unrepentantly goofy like Calamity is, but I think in every other way I'm closer to a Bill Hickok.
See, yeah, the unrepentant goofy, that's definitely me, but if it comes down to dividing this household, Dan is the more unrepentantly goofy one.
Me?
Yeah.
No.
He winked at me.
I did a little bit.
I want to reiterate, because I feel like we spent a lot of time on the problematic stuff, which is very problematic.
Yes.
But just talking a little bit more about the joy and how fun this movie is. So many of the songs are just delightful and like terrible earworms in the best way possible.
Yes.
I played this movie exactly once for our younger sister, Sophie, and she was singing the songs for the next 2 days. She had no previous knowledge of the movie or the songs, and they're such good earworms and they're so catchy and so fun that she got enough of them that she was singing them for the next 2 days straight. And it's just like, if I always watch it when I'm sick, because it is the perfect movie when you're like sick on the couch, like having chicken soup, and you just want something to be like fun and lighthearted and funny and entertaining, and it is the perfect movie for that.
I can totally see that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It is.
Also, I've always been a fan of period movies that are made in a different time from, like, we had a point where historical accuracy was a big deal, but so much of the, like, 50s, 60s, 70s period pieces are, like, not period pieces at all. They're, like, period filtered through the lens of the 50s, or period filtered through the lens of the 70s.
Or the 30s.
There's
it's incredible. Yeah. I'm a real fan of the non-period period movie because we didn't start caring about historical accuracy until maybe the late 80s, early 90s.
Yeah.
There is this version of...
I call it the Happy Days effect.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
That is brilliant.
And this is a prime example where they actually have a lot of historical accuracies, but they also have so many historical inaccuracies in order to be, like, fashionable or to fit in with, like, common modern sensibilities at the time and stuff. Like, the color schemes are crazy, and the dresses get so close to being period, and then they totally go off the rails and are not period at all by the time they're done. And I love that kind of, like, non-period period piece. And this has that in spades.
Yeah. It's a delightful movie. There's a reason that despite the fact that I know it's super problematic, I will never stop watching this movie. And I've stopped watching a lot of other things that I did really like at some point. And I think part of it is because this movie is, like, genuinely good-spirited. I think it doesn't mean anything bad at any point. And even if it did some stuff that's bad, there is something very, like, joyful and well-intended about this movie.
Yeah, I agree. It has its issues, but is just a fun movie.
Yeah.
And it is very happy and joyful and bubbly, and I love it.
Yes. Absolutely agreed.
Nice.
So, Nelsen Sisters, where can our listeners find you?
We are at Historically Hot on basically all the social media platforms. You can find Historical Hotties anywhere that you acquire your podcast, pretty much. And yeah, definitely come check us out. You can find Dan already as a guest on our Composers episode.
Yeah. And stay tuned because Kate is recording with us very shortly. And that will be coming up very soon. Keep an eye out for Magicians.
And then Dan will be back again.
That's right.
Yep.
Yes.
Because he went down in history as the man who coined Sea Witch List in Historical Hotties land.
Oh, goodness. Well, thank you so much for joining us. This has been an absolute delight.
Thank you so much for having us.
It was so much fun.
Of course. We'll have to have you back on sometime soon.
Absolutely.
We're very excited. We're going to
that.
be recording with Lindsay and Jordan Reed from Spooky Spouses later on this month, and just scheduled Colin for July. And I'm very excited for all of that.
That sounds super fun. Yeah, no, Lindsay and Jordan have taken over our show, but we have never actually recorded with them, so...
Yeah, I've not recorded with them either, but they're delightful, just like you guys. So I think it'll be, I think it'll be a blast. So
should be good times.
Yes. From our side, you can always find us on iTunes, Podbean, Stitcher, YouTube, Spotify, Google Play, all that good stuff. Wherever you find your podcasts, really.
On the various and sundry social medias, Instagram and Twitter, we are at Subverted Tropes, and you can find us on Facebook at Subverted Tropes Podcast.
And we've got our blog, subvertedtropecast.wordpress.com, where we write up fun things about the movies, and we'll post a lot of pictures. A lot of pictures.
It's my strategy for success, guys. I make no apologies.
If you have any questions, thoughts, anything like that, you can always send us an email at subvertedtropecast@gmail.com.
And as always, a big thanks to our beautiful logo designer, Gracie Bolland. You can find her on YouTube and Instagram at A Modern Unicorn. She does tarot readings and just all kinds of good witchy stuff. And she's the best, and we love her. Her birthday was last week.
That's right.
So she can't make that Hamilton joke anymore about only being 19, but her mind is older.
Yes.
Sorry, Gracie. I'm really sorry.
That's a loss.
Yeah, it's a big one.
It was.
But yeah, this has been a lot of fun, and thanks so much for tuning in. We'll see you guys on the next episode.
Yeah.
Yay.
Bye.